Greetings, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Brooke and today we have my recent read / February and March wrap up. So I've read a lot of books in the last 2 months, but I actually forgot to update you in February. So here we are with I'm sure what is a super long video of me giving you my March and February wrap up reads. But I'm going to work backwards as I usually do, even if it is a 1 month wrap up. And I'm going to tell you first about my most recent read, and I'll work backwards to the books I read at the beginning of February, because I just feel like that's the easiest way for memory wise. The book I most recently finished in March was All the Lovers in the Night by Miko Kawakami. I decided to give this book a 3.5 stars. I feel as though I had moments that I loved and connected with so heavily, and other moments that I felt lacked and dragged. Things that I didn't feel were necessary and I didn't really understand the hidden meaning of. Follow Fuyuko, who is a proofreader in her 30s, and you kind of just follow her after she's put herself into isolation. She has been very separated from social life for a very long time, and you can see that her anxieties have kind of built up from there, and the direct result of not interacting with people for so long, what it can do to a mind. You kind of see her trying to rebuild her social life, but things not always going as planned. She kind of turns to alcohol, which is kind of briefly discussed, but never that deeply. So it was a little bit of a weird one. It handled a lot of topics, but nothing very deep. I think that was kind of something that I struggled with a little bit in this book. Like, I wanted it to go deeper and heavier into these sad, hard topics, and it didn't do it for me personally, but I still had a really good time. I feel like Kawakami really did a good job with very simple but yet punching writing style, drawing you into what was a mundane life but yet meant so much. I felt really connected to our main character. I felt really sad at some of the things that were happening, and the end was so abrupt and shocking to me that I kind of didn't even know if I liked it or disliked it, but I was so shocked that I put it from a 3 to a 3.5. Like, I was really surprised at the ending. And it is a super short book, but it also takes a lot of brain power. I feel like you have to really search for what the author is trying to tell you in the pages. I remember at one point saying to Liam, I was saying, I don't really understand what it's trying to tell me. And he said, I know it's trying to tell me something, but I cannot grasp what that something is. And then 2 pages later, I was like, I've got it. Don't worry about me. It was a really hard read because it's a lot of tragedy for one person's life, especially when you see kind of like a self-inflicted tragedy and also what seemed to be a very innocent mind. Like, this main character kind of came across really young, and like they didn't understand the implications of what they were doing, even though they are in their 30s. They must have. It was really interesting, and I was fascinated by the character and the world that Kawakami had built up around our character. It was very interesting. The characters were very 3D, very well developed, very intricate. Even our side characters, they felt real. Like, I understood what they were doing even when they were wrong. But yeah, it's just such a shocking novel, very slow, kind of slice of life. If that's not your type of thing, this is not for you. It was a nice writing style, not overly beautiful, very simple, but really got to the point, and I really liked it. I'm very intrigued to pick up more from Miko Kawakami now. I know that everybody loves breasts and eggs, so that is next on my radar. I read Sweet Pea by CJ Skews. This is the first book in a series that is very hard to describe. We follow Rhiannon, who is a serial killer, and you're kind of reading her diary. And so she's telling you about her inner thoughts and feelings and what she's done and who she's done it to. And this woman is nuts, but in the most fascinating way. Like, to say that I love her takes it too far, because this woman is vile. This woman is a serial killer. This woman hurts people. But also she's fascinating. So I don't know. She's really funny. It's a very comedic book, and like, there are times that I forget she's a bad person, and then suddenly she'll spout out the kind of people she hates, and it'll be really offensive. but you get that this is just the character. CJ Excuse has built up this person so well. I just absolutely love listening to her deranged mind. I'm listening to the audiobook and it's part hilarious and part so graphic and horrible. At one point, there was this scene while she was murdering someone where she compared something to bread. And I was sat there eating my lunch with a bread roll. And I was like, this is the worst experience ever. Why am I eating during this? So it's not all lighthearted and fluffy as it seems to be because it's so funny and comedic. But at the same time, it is also a serial killer and it is quite graphic. But it is so interesting, and I'm on the second book now. I have to go straight into it, and I just thoroughly enjoyed it. So I gave it a 4 stars. I'm very intrigued to see what happens in the rest of the series. I could see the ending. I thought the ending was quite obvious, but it seems other people didn't see that happening. I saw that happening from the beginning. Maybe that says more about me as a person if I can understand the inner workings of a psychopath. But I saw the ending coming. Didn't have any detriment on my enjoyment levels at all. I had a wonderful time and I couldn't recommend this enough, especially the audiobook, because I just feel like, considering it's her diaries, hearing them narrated works really, really well. But I honestly just don't want to tell you anything about this book because I just feel like this is such an experience that you just need to go into and be prepared for anything. I don't even know what's going to happen in the next few books, but I'm truly prepared for absolutely anything that CJ Excuse is going to throw my way. I'm so excited. Then I read Soft Thorns by Bridget DeVoe. This is a poetry collection revolving around grief, rape, heartbreak. It just personally for me did nothing. I gave this a 2 stars. I feel like poetry is such a personal thing to read and you either connect with it or you don't. And this one for me, I just did not connect with the way I have with some other poetry collections, hence the 2-star rating. I don't think it was bad by any means. I just didn't love it. I also do not recommend the audiobook, which is how I listen to this. It is narrated by the author herself, but it feels very budget, if that makes sense. Like, it doesn't sound like the best audio equipment and things like that. And I wonder if that had any sort of impact on why my enjoyment levels weren't the highest. I do feel like if you, obviously checking trigger warnings before you go into this, it's very deep, but if you feel like you could connect to those poems, maybe this will help you in a grieving process or in a recovery. But for me, I just did not need this poetry collection, and that's fine. It wasn't made for me. Then I read the entire Chestnut Springs series for a video that probably isn't out yet because I'm still editing it, but I did read this entire series, so kind of spoiler alert, I guess, because I'm about to tell you my thoughts. But wow, I love this series so much, and yes, I did binge the entire thing in a row in 1 week. It was amazing. So firstly, I'm going to do this in order. I read Flawless, which is about Rhett and Summer, and it sets up this series so perfectly and introduces you to all the characters in such a good way. This was a 4-star for me. Rhett, oh my god, that scared the bejesus out of me. Rhett is a bull rider and Summer works for his PR company, and so when he genuinely, he says, I don't like milk. Genuinely, that's what he says, and as a result, a lot of brand sponsors drop him as a client, and so his PR firm are like, you need a babysitter. Babysitter being Summer. And so she literally moves in with this man to keep him on a leash. It's unbelievable. The whole romance exists because he doesn't like milk. It's so funny to me. And I know that sounds trivial and that's going to put a lot of people off, but it wasn't trivial. It was a really fun romance. I had a wonderful time. And as I said, it sets up this family so perfectly. And I'm just obsessed with them. The whole Chestnut Springs place was so iconic. Like, I so badly want to meet a cowboy and live in a little ranch for the rest of my life. Like, I will do anything. I will pay any amount. Sorry to my boyfriend, but he's not a cowboy, so he'll get it. Then I read Heartless, which is the second book, and follows Cade, the single dad. I gave this book 5 stars. This is one of the best romances in the world. Oh my god, wow. So we meet him in Flawless, and he's this single dad. He's grumpy and he's looking for a babysitter when he takes on a babysitter who you do meet in the first book, but I don't want to tell you her name because I don't want to like spoil it for you, the reveal of who it is. But they got on like a little house on fire, and the grumpy sunshine, the connection and bond between Luke and the nanny, who later becomes the love interest, was phenomenal. Like, I hate single parent books. I hate it. I hate any romance with kids in it. I'm just not someone who loves children in books. I'll be honest, I don't really like children in real life. I'm not really that fussed on reading them in my books as well. This was so surprising to me because this was my favourite in the series. I absolutely fell in love, especially with Cade. Like, I just feel like he just took me by surprise. This man is my love, my life. He is one sexy cowboy, and I could read this romance over and over again, forever and ever, and never be bored. Like, it was honestly so good, and it set up again so much for the future books. Like, I feel like there's a lot of interconnected romance series where you could read the books as standalones and it wouldn't really matter. This book has so much interconnected relationships and scenes and moments. I truly feel like you would be missing out were you to skip a book. Genuinely, I feel like you just not get it. So please read this series, and please read it in order. It is so worth your time, and this one is the best one. Next we had Powerless, which was Jasper's story. He is very much in love with his childhood best friend Sloane, and so in this book we see Sloane, a runaway bride, running off with her best friend Jasper to escape life. I gave this one a 4 stars. I am not really a childhood friends to lovers gal. I'm not really a friends to lovers gal in general. I'd much rather like they just meet, instant attraction, or be enemies to lovers. Like, I just don't do friends to lovers. Like, I don't get it myself. It's just not for me. But I still really, really enjoyed this one. Jasper has a lot of like backstory you learn about in this one, and Sloane is just a troubled gal, and I just loved seeing their progression as not only friends but also as a couple. You go on a bit of a journey, which is part of the reason I think I didn't love this one, is because like it didn't take place in Chestnut Springs quite as much, and like I missed the family and the other couples, but I still had a really good time with this one. Jasper is a hockey player, so if you're a hockey romance girly, this one is a hockey romance. Then we had Theo, who, again, I will not tell you who the romance is with because I was so shocked. I couldn't believe it. But Theo, you meet in the first book, Flawless. He is kind of like Rhett's pupil, I guess. His, what do they call him, protege or something? I don't know. Rhett in the first book basically becomes his trainer, I guess. So this is another bull rider romance. And the person who it's with, it was just so shocking. And they have a one night stand. Well, it does tell you on the back, but like I also just don't know if I should tell you. I don't think I will. You can read the blurb if you want to. But something happens and they end up re-meeting after their one night stand, and it was surprisingly so good. Again, something in this that I would never normally like in my romances. I was so shocked by how much I enjoyed this one. Like, I think this was my second favourite in the series, I think. I had a wonderful time. It was brilliant. Again, a lot more interaction with the family. Like, this one I think had the most interaction with the family versus the rest. So, as you can imagine, I loved it. I just loved seeing all the past characters and all the family members, and the Harvey, the father of all the boys, because Harvey is the best. It was just amazing. And last but not least, we have Hopeless, which is the final book in the series and also followed my favourite character, Beau. But unfortunately through the series, Beau kind of goes through some stuff. Beau started off as like this happy-go-lucky guy, but he was in the military and stuff happens to this poor dude. And so by the time you get to his book, he's on the low. You know, he's not doing so well. He's at the bar a lot where Bailey works. And you see Bailey in the past books, but nothing too deep, nothing too in-depth. She's just kind of a very minor character just mentioned. But yeah, they end up sparking up a romance, and she helps him with the trauma and he helps her with her bad family reputation. It was okay. It was not... I still gave it 4 stars. Like, I still really enjoyed it. But it was my least favourite in the series. Like, I feel like there was some missing depth to this one. Like, I felt, considering the storyline, this should have been the really deep one. Like, PTSD and everything. Like, you really would have expected so much. It just didn't do much for me. I felt like it was a bit of a letdown at the end of the series. but only because I expected so much from Bo's book. Like, this was a 5-star prediction for me. So I'm a little bit disappointed. But anyway, you can see even more depth and all of my thoughts in that video when it comes out, if it's not already out, but it's definitely not already out. Just before that, I read Light Lark by Alex Astor. And again, I did read this in a vlog with Jade, so I will put that up because it is already out. This is a dystopian where every 100 years the Centurion happens, which is basically like a set of games where all these leaders come and they try and solve the riddle, and then they have to kill someone to free them all from curses. Very Hunger Games meets Twilight. I gave this a 3 stars because it is entertaining. It's not good though. Like, I feel like it's very important for me to note and let you guys know that I do not recommend this book, but it is a good time. Like, I literally wrote in my Goodreads review, I can't in good conscience recommend this book. But like, it is fun. The writing is so choppy and disjointed. Like, the writing is not good, in my opinion. I literally think she wrote scenes and then never blended them together. You start chapters in the middle of scenes and you end them in the middle of scenes. It's so weird, and it just literally had me so confused, and I kept having to reread pages, like, what am I missing, or checking that I hadn't gotten a page stuck together because it was just so peculiar. It was an interesting writing style. I don't know if it was done purposely or if it was just maybe a case of lazy writing, or just maybe not being, like, it was a debut novel, so maybe it was just lack of experience, and hopefully future books from this author will be better. But I can understand why this book has gotten like a movie deal and everything. Like, it is such a fun, easy to digest story that is definitely up there with those, you know, 2014 dystopian rage books. Like, we love them. They are some of my favorite books and movies, and this does hold up with those books. But it's full of betrayals, it's full of shock, it's exactly what you want for a fun, easy read. But again, is it good? Questionable, not really. Next, I picked up Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh because everybody is reading this right now. I give this 3 stars. So Binding 13, it follows Johnny and Shannon, and it's set in 2005 Ireland. Johnny is a very famous rugby player. Is it rugby? Yes. But he's still in school. They're like 18 and 16, or 17 and 16. He's going to be turning 18 soon. Shannon is just moving to a new school after dealing with a lot of bullying. So there's like a lot of trauma there. These are dark books. I do want to recommend trigger warnings. Like, I was so surprised by how dark these books are. There is a lot of trigger warnings for abuse and domestic abuse, child abuse, alcoholism, drug use. Like, oh my god, it just goes on. Just keeps going on and on and on. But the relationship is very wholesome in this book. However, this was 700 pages of a boy driving a girl home from school day after day after day, and I was kind of over it by that point. I'm on the second book now, so this is including the second book. But why is every single person seem to be taking a shower in Johnny's house? Like, I could literally use 2 hands to tell you the amount of people who have showered in Johnny's house. It's so weird. Like, I feel like I'm getting the same scenes. People having showers in Johnny's house, and Johnny driving Shannon home from school. Like, I wish I was joking. Like, that's literally all it is over and over again. But I was very, like, shocked by the ending. It's a cliffhanger ending, and so I was like, I'm gonna read the second book. Like, I already owned it on my Kindle, so I did it, and I'm halfway through that now. My feelings are the same. It's still a 3-star read so far, but I am invested. So whilst I have a lot of problems with this read and the writing style, some of the weird corny jokes, and also, like, I don't think some topics were handled very well, it's not my favorite book, but I am reading it, and it is surprisingly easy to read considering it is 700 pages. So I guess I'm contradicting myself, because do I recommend it? No. Did I continue reading the series? Yes. I don't know if I'll continue on after keeping 13, because I don't own the rest of the books, and they're like £6 on Kindle, and I don't want to own them physically. But I also really want to get to Gibbsy's story. I think he's the most newest release, Taming Seven, which is coming out very soon. I love Gibbsy. I literally love that man. He's so funny. Oh my goodness, but I don't like Claire, so I don't really want to read Claire's story, but also Gibbsy comes with Claire. So I don't know. Do I recommend them? Not really. But are they a bad book? No, not at all. And some people literally ride or die this series. So who am I to judge? Then I read Triple Duty Bodyguards by Lily Gold. I think this is her most famous book, but for me it was my least favourite, but I still gave it a 4 stars. Lily Gold writes reverse harem novels that just are so much fun. This one was a lot deeper than her others. This one had like a lot of trigger warnings for like kidnapping, stalking, sexual assault. It was deep. I was very surprised, but I had a great time. Like I stayed up till 3:30 in the morning finishing this, which was completely unexpected. Just could not go to sleep no matter how tired I was. I just kept reading and could not sleep. Briar is our main character and something quite traumatic happens to her, but she's like the most hated celebrity in the world, and so she hires 3 security guards whose names I can't remember. I remember it's like Kata, Matt and something, I can't quite remember, to watch after her. And they are 3 ex-military men with a lot of PTSD of their own. So it's like a lot of trauma going on in this book. The more I think about it, the more I don't love this book. Like the more I think it's probably a 3.5. But I just feel like Why Choose Romances hit so hard for me. Like I don't know why. I just feel like it keeps things so interesting because there's multiple love interests without all that jealousy and drama. Like I just like it, and I like getting to know people. I don't get bored, so they always really work for me. But this one was wild, and the more I think about the 3rd act conflict and what happened, the more I'm like, oh my god, what the hell did I read? So maybe I'm gonna give this a 3.5. I had a good time as always. Lily Gold's writing is so easily digestible, so unserious. You're always gonna have a good time. Yeah, I really don't have much to say on this one. I thought I liked it more than I did, so that's a sad revelation. Then I read If You'll Have Me by Uni. I was so surprised when I picked this up because I didn't realize it was a sapphic romance. So I was so happy. It was so cute. I literally am obsessed. I gave this a 4 stars. This was a wonderful magical time for me. I think this is some of my favorite color scheme ever. You know, graphic novel. Like look at the use of color. Oh, I literally am obsessed. Like there's just so much cute pastel colors in this one, and I feel like the characters were really relatable. We follow a socially awkward girl as she kind of crushes on the very popular player girl. I don't know, it was just so cute. I can see myself rereading this over and over again. Is there a lot of substance? No. Like there's nothing really too deep about this. It's just a really cute romance. I know that if I'm ever feeling down, I could pick this up and I'll feel better in no time. So this was really cute, and I definitely recommend. I'm always on the hunt for really good graphic novels, so if you want to let me know some down below, I would really appreciate it. Okay, I've already unhauled my copy of the next one, unfortunately, but that would be Tempest of Tea by Hafsa Faisal. I had the beautiful Waterstones sprayed edge edition of this, but ooh, no, this one was not for me. I gave it a 2 stars. I feel like I really enjoyed the first 30%, and that was it. It went downhill from there. The vibes were everything. The vibes were definitely giving. Old kind of medieval feel town with a cafe that by night becomes somewhere vampires drink blood out of teacups. Like, oh my goodness, wow. However, this is a heist story with the lowest stakes. Like I didn't feel any tension. I didn't feel the stakes were high in any sort of way. Like I just did not care. I just didn't feel connected to any of the characters. I felt the pacing was so off. It was so unbelievably slow. The end had a lot of like dramatic reveals, but I'll be honest, I don't think they worked for me because I just did not care. Like I was so desperate to get to the end of this book that nothing had any impact on me. No reveals had any shock value. I was just like, okay, next page, please, hurry up. So none of this paid off for me. I only gave it a 2 stars, not a 1, because of the first 30%, which I really enjoyed. Other than that, I had no interest. Zero. By the end, I literally I could have read anything and had absolutely no reaction. I feel like everybody's really enjoyed the story, and so maybe I'm just alone in my feelings. But I'm pretty hardcore on this hill that I will not be continuing this series. I did not like it and I do not recommend. Next, I read Happenstance by Tessa Bailey, a Why Choose Romance again. I gave this 4 stars, so I did really enjoy it, but I do just want to make like a bit of a disclaimer. The Tessa Bailey is so hit or miss. Like, I've had 1 stars and DNFs from this woman, and I've also had some 4 stars great reads from her. Her writing of sex scenes are some of the most cringy I've ever read, because the male characters like to dirty talk serious things and feelings. And I'm like, shut up. Do the steamy scene and get on with it. Like, I just don't want to hear you confessing every emotion you have during the scene. So you can imagine it's worse with 3 men, because they're all doing it. So that part aside, because I've literally hated books from her because of that reason, I enjoyed this. It is a very fun time. Elise gets stuck on a ski lift thing. Like, it's not a ski lift, is it? It's like one of those things, like a tall thingy. And the like electricity cuts off or something, and she gets stuck in there with 3 men and has to share their body heat, so she's just weirdly cuddling up to 3 men in the middle of nowhere. I would be absolutely crapping my pants if I got stuck in one of those with 3 men. I'd be in the corner crying, like, please leave me alone, please don't look at me, please don't talk to me. But no, this girl is like getting up close and personal. And then as they get to do steamy things, everything comes back on, and she's like, oh my god, leave, run. They steal her ID and they track her back down. A little bit weird, a little bit toxic. But she ends up in a relationship with them all, trying to make things work. Then it's focusing on her personal career. All those things. I mean, it is nothing deep. This is just a fun time of a girl and her 3 men. And I support her for that. Good for her. The men were not sleazy and gross like in My Killer Vacation, so I was on board from the offset. This is not the next Shakespeare, and don't expect it to be. If you want to have a good smutty time, I recommend. Okay, next, again, I have unhauled my copy, but I read Blood and Moonlight by Erin Beatty. This is like a fantasy romance set in this like medieval style town, which I really like the style of. I gave it a 2.5, and most of that 2.5 is for the world building. Like, I really, really enjoyed it, and the descriptions were stunning. The writing style was beautiful. The story, however, not good for me personally. I feel like I enjoyed the first part of the book, and then the further we got on, the more it dragged. The pacing was so unbelievably off in this book, and again, kind of like A Tempest of Tea, by the end I did not care, I did not want to know, I just wanted it to be over and done with. I guessed the killer from page 40. It was the most obvious killer in the world, in my humble opinion. It is YA, so maybe that's just meant to be obvious, but for me, I was like, girl, are you for real right now? I did not like the romance. Like, they had 0 chemistry with each other. It was really weird and out of nowhere, and it's one of those things where it's like, you spend 2 minutes together and they're like, oh my god, I love you, I'd do anything for you, I'll risk my life for you, I'll leave my family for you, I'll do anything for you. And it's like, okay. I mean, maybe that's great in YA, but it did nothing for adult me, I'm afraid. I also feel like we got so much unnecessary information. Like, the things that were explained to us, and I was like, okay, but why do we need to know this? There is more to this series, but again, I have absolutely no interest in continuing. Will not be picking up another book from this series, but I would consider picking up another book from this author because the writing was incredible, but it would have to be adult, I think, because I definitely don't like YA from this author. Before that, I read A Multitude of Dreams by Mara Rutherford. This is, again, a YA horror, paranormal, fantasy romance. It's a lot of things. This one I gave a 3 stars. I think this was very well done in regards to vibes and world building and atmosphere. Like, the atmosphere in this was unmatched. I guess it's kind of post-apocalyptic because there was like a disease that raided these towns, and so a bunch of people live holed up in this castle where they have not seen the outside world for a very, very long time. but they're living like royalty and the king, and they have these balls and banquets, but they just don't know what's happening outside. They don't know what it's like. They don't know what's going on. The vibes are immaculate. The pacing, this is one of the slowest books I've ever read with not a lot of plot at all. I feel like if we'd done a little bit more work on the plot, this could have been a 4 stars, but there was absolutely no plot. It was no plot, just vibes. There was an end to the story that I didn't love. Like, I was like, okay, it's a bit interesting. If you are going to read this book, go in completely for the vibes, because that is what you're going to get. Vibes are brilliant, but it was a lot of one very isolated setting, which I love. But because not a lot was happening in this isolated setting, the pacing just dragged. I felt like we needed a lot more energy to kind of bring it all together in such a small isolated setting. The characters were not very well developed. Like, I did not really care about any of them. There was not a lot of depth to them, but again, I think a lot of the focus on this book was just vibes. So if that's what you're looking for, that is what you're going to get. It was not one I would reread. I did unhaul my copy, but you know, it was interesting. Next, I'm about to show you a very special book to me. A 5-star read, a new absolute favourite, and that is 6 Scorched Roses by Carissa Broadbent. That is a hard name to say. This is the novella that follows Serpent and the Wings of Night, but like doesn't follow any of the characters from in that book. I believe these characters are going to be in the second book, but I have not read it yet. This is Lilith and Vale's love story. Lilith is a human and Vale is a vampire. This is 190 pages, and more was fitted into this book than a 500-page romance. I do not believe that I did not read a 500-page romance. I do not believe you, because this was the most well-developed, well-structured, well-paced book I've ever read. The character development throughout was incredible. I was so invested in these characters. I was so obsessed with them. Like, I felt like I knew everything about their backgrounds and their depth and their chemistry. I was so invested, and when the third act conflict was happening, oh my goodness, my heart was in my mouth. Like, I've never cared so much about 2 people in my life. And that is how you do a romance. The world building, the vibes, everything was top tier level in this book. And it has made me so excited. Also, sorry, but stunning. It has made me so excited to continue into the series now and read the second book in this duology. Gobsmacked. If you have not read that series, or if you don't have any interest in the Serpent and the Wings of Night series, you can still read this. Like, it is a standalone novella that the characters then just go into another book. This is so worth your time. Incredible, immaculate. Every single factor of this book is incredible. Like, I just don't have any critiques. No notes. I think honestly just everything about this book was so unexpected for me. I just didn't expect to be able in such a short amount of pages to fall in love with these characters, to see so much development from them, to see so much development of the world. Like, I feel like everything was just done to perfection. So 100% recommend. Couldn't recommend enough. We'll probably talk about this constantly on my channel, and yeah, I would love to talk about this more with people, so please read this. Honestly, it'll take you no time at all. It's so short. And if you want to read this before you read Serpent and the Wings of Night, like, that's fine too. Like, it doesn't spoil anything, so please pick this up. Next, I read Carmen Till by Lauren Carter, and my first thing I want to say is look at this cover. Is this not the most beautiful cover you have ever seen? Look at the back. No notes. No notes. This is a short story horror collection, so it's kind of hard to talk to you about them because obviously they're all very different stories, but I gave this 5 stars, of course. Incredible. My favorite horror author ever. These are spooky, scary, terrifying to the max. Like, so scary. Terrified. There's like a mixture of like paranormal, ghost, graphic stories, like, so you can just, you know, every horror reader can get something from this. There are also illustrations throughout which are stunning, beautiful, wonderful. Let me find another one for you. I made a bookmark to match this book because I love I love. That's over on Bookmarks. My personal favourites in this are Dead Under the Sun and Moonlight Shadows. So if you read this, let me know what your favourite story was in it so that we can compare. I loved every story, but those two are my absolute favourites. Next, I read Days at the Morisaki Bookshop by Satoshi Yagisawa. I love a translated moment, so when I saw this trending, I had to pick it up. We follow our main character who kind of goes through a hard time, and so when their uncle invites them to come live rent-free at the bookstore, all they have to do is kind of work now and again. They jump at the chance. They're not really that happy to be there, but they are happy to have somewhere to be. And it's just a very short slice of life story, just a little look into a bookshop and what goes into it. And I really enjoyed the setting. It was all very atmospheric. I did give this a 4 stars. Maybe I would drop that to a 3.5 now for 2 reasons. Number one, a lot of this book is not set at the bookshop, which kind of was really, really sad. Like, I expected more of the bookshop in this, because at one point she does leave and I'm like, is that it? Give me more. Also, there is a cat on the cover and no cat. And I feel like that was just like a marketing technique and I did not appreciate it. If you're going to put a cat on the cover, you better put a cat in the book. I want a cat in the book. And I don't remember there being a cat in the book, unless I'm wrong. There's also 2 cats on the cover. There's another one right there. And whilst they're cute, if it's not in the book, you've both advertised to me. This is one of the most beautiful covers ever. The writing style is lovely. The translation is great, in my opinion. And it's a really short story. I love translated fictions. Like, I never dislike them. It's not one of my absolute favourite all-time translated fictions. I would love to do a video on those, actually. That'd be a really fun idea. But it was really, really entertaining. And, you know, if you fancy picking this up and you think it would be your kind of thing, it's very slice of life, I would recommend. The next series I read was the Knock 'Em Out series by Lucy Score. And let me tell you, this became my entire personality for like a month. I read these at the beginning of February and I literally think about them still every single day. Every single day. I want to have artwork in my room of these characters, but I literally cannot find any on Etsy. Like, I can only find real life people and I want character art. I need it. This is probably one of the most well-developed romance series ever. And none of them were 5 stars, and yet I still feel this way. Like, this is still one of my favourite romance series, even though I didn't have 1 5-star in it. I just don't know how to explain that. Okay, so we started off with Things We Never Got Over, and this is like the first look into the Knock 'Em Out world. So we follow Naomi, whose bad evil twin kind of like convinces her to meet up at a bar, and then while she's at this bar, she steals her stuff, and she is stranded in this town to look after her evil twin niece's her evil twin's daughter, so her niece, Waylon. And while she's there, this guy Knox starts shouting at her, then helps her when he realises she's not her evil twin. And they just forge a romance. Okay, this, whilst not a perfect romance, this did get 4 stars. They all got 4 stars. It was almost a 5 stars, but the 3rd act drama was the stupidest thing I've ever read. Like, it was so dumb. They just did not need to fight over that. So that's why I didn't get a 5 star from me. I'm still so invested. I still absolutely love this small town. Oh my holy god, this small town is the best thing I've ever read. I think I love it more than Chestnut Springs. And yes, they're long. Yes, they're long. Yes, they're chunky. And they do take a while to get through, but like, they're so, so worth it. Lucy Score might be a new favourite romance author of mine, because even though she has not had a 5 star yet, she has consistently gotten 4 stars from me. And like, I'd rather that than a 5 star, than a 1 star, than a 5 star, than a 1 star author. So I'm very pleased with this. The second book follows Knox's brother, Nash, and he meets Lena, Knox's ex-girlfriend. I know, it's so weird. She moves to town. She's like this undercover detective person. He is a police officer. He is actually dealing with some stuff that happened in the first book to him. So, you know, it's again like it's a traumatized man situation. She's like a nice person, but she's like a bad girl. You know, she's got a dodgy job. I think this was my favourite in the series. I just truly don't know what she put in these books, but they're like crack to me. Like, I have never felt this way about a series. Like, I just felt so good. But I didn't give this a 5 stars because it was really weird that the end of this book finished the exact same way as the end of the first book. Like, it was so weird. I was like it was so dramatic, like, honestly. these are the most dramatic books ever. If you like those dramatic TV shows that are absolutely ridiculous, like they don't make any sense. Like it's so it's so unnecessary and blown out of proportion. If you're okay with that, you'll love these because they're so good, but they don't, like, they are ridiculous. Like I'm the first to admit. But yeah, if this is weird that it ended the exact same way as the first book, and like the thing that it happened is not just like some casual thing that could be repeated. It's like wild, like truly wild. So yeah, that is why I didn't get a 5-star from me, but I think this is my favorite in the series. I don't know. The third one in this series is Things We Left Behind. This follows Sloane and Lucian. Lucian is like this crime mafia boss, and Sloane is a librarian. And they've had a thing for each other since they were kids. They were childhood best friends, but something happened that we don't know about, and they hate each other. They literally despise each other. They don't even want to be around each other, and you've seen them in the last few books arguing all the time. This is their romance. It's the final book in the series. I honestly just love these two so freaking much. Oh my goodness. I think this was like the slowest book, but also the most meaningful. Whilst there is smut in all of these books, like this one just felt like they had such a connection. Like I just love these two so much. And I honestly just remember finishing this series and feeling so empty. I've never had a book hangover as hard as I have after this series. Like, I am so unbelievably obsessed. I don't know what's wrong with me. I literally want to live in Knock 'Em Out so bad, and it lives in my brain all the time. It's all I think about is Knock 'Em Out. I want to live there. I want to reread these right now. But like none of them were a 5-star. It's wild to me. So if you haven't read this series, I cannot physically recommend them enough. They are not perfect books. They are long. They are a little drawn out. They're unnecessary. They're silly. But they are such a feel-good book. And the town setting, it's just immaculate vibes. Immaculate vibes. I had the best time. So yeah, in case you can't tell, this is definitely a recommend from me. Absolutely adore. I'm just so in love with these, and they look so good on my shelves. I just need some artwork for my walls of these characters so unbelievably badly. And maybe Chestnut Springs. And the final book I have to show you today, which is the first book I read in February. I'm sorry it's going to be a downer, but I read Throne of the Fallen by Carrie Maniscalco, and I gave it a 2 stars. This is a standalone fantasy, or that's what it's being advertised as. This is not a standalone fantasy. If you have not read the Kingdom of the Wicked series, you're going to be confused. There is very minimal world building in this. You are expected to know everything, which you would only know if you have read the Kingdom of the Wicked series. Which, bearing in mind that is YA and this is adult and keeps being advertised as a standalone, it doesn't sit right with me. Now, I absolutely adored the Kingdom of the Wicked series, and so I was really excited for this one because it takes place a lot more in the 7 Circles of Hell. This was so boring. Oh my goodness. It is so long. So boring. My Goodreads review of this, the chemistry between these two is the equivalent of trying to get 2 plastic dolls to kiss. And I stand by that wholeheartedly. There was 0 romance. I'm saying this, I buddy read this with Jade, and Jade loved it. She gave it a 4 stars. So I'm well aware that I might be on my own over here, but I did not feel any chemistry between these two characters. Zilch. 0. I was bored the whole time. I couldn't wait to finish it. I love Carrie Maniscalco's writing, and I definitely loved it in this book as well. She's just got such a good writing style, and I can't wait for the next book. Like, I just don't think these characters connected with me personally. They did nothing for me. They're just not my people. I will reread this in the future when I reread all of the books. I'm sure I'll do it at some point. I'm hoping it'll be more of, you know, an exciting time for me then. But this was a fail. This was a flop. This put me in such a bad slump. I didn't like it. I'm sorry. And I'm sorry to end on such a bad note. But if you got to the end of this video and you don't know what to comment a daisy for Things We Never Got Over. Let me know down below what your favourite book of March/February was, and maybe your least favourite as well, because I love the goss. And I shall see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.